Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. As usual, this is our series where we get people who mean quite a bit to society with the works that they do. And today we're honored to have one of the PDR Posse members, Tom Czarnik. Did I say your name right, Tom?
Right, Czarnik. Yeah, some people
Tom
say Czarnik, but Czarnik is the way I use it. Right.
All right.
That's
Well, welcome as usual to Politics Done Right, Tom. How you doing today, first of all?
okay. Just fine. I enjoyed your show, and you covered a lot of territory, and that was interesting with going from domestic politics to international politics, all the
All
way
in
around the world in
all
one
in
in
one
1 hour.
sweep. But
Yep.
today we're not even going to take domestic or whatever. We're going to be talking
Yeah.
about uh, you releasing another book. I mean, first of all, how many books have you written?
Well, I've got 5 published, but I have at least 5 more that I want to get out there. I've been writing my whole life. And especially the last 50 years, probably.
Hmm.
And I like writing every day. I write about politics, but I write also stories and plays and poems. And so I have a lot of fun with that. And then just within the last 8 months or so, my brother encouraged me to start publishing. He told me about the Amazon Kindle
KDP, yeah.
KDP and also Kindle Create, which is the
Hmm.
app. And I learned how to do that because I have a little bit of computer background. I worked in database development in accounting, and I figured it out, and it was a lot of fun. Especially have fun doing the covers, but also putting pictures within the text. And it's just been kind of an adventure. I really not looking to make a killing on it or for fame and fortune. I just want to get it out there, but it's you get older and you start thinking, what am I leaving behind? and
Right.
uh, and I like the idea of making a difference in the world. And I'm not sure this does, but some people like it. Some people have bought it. Some have. I've given a lot of books away, uh, and so it's kind of a break-even process.
Well, it's interesting because you've been a member of our show for a long time now, the PDR Posse, and
Yeah, a couple
I
years.
just came about learning about your writing after you would all would put limericks in our feed all of the times, and I always get a kick out of reading them with some sort of an
Yeah,
emotion
I
you,
enjoy that. Yeah,
I like to read your limericks because they're always prescient and make sense with whatever politics we're talking about or whatever subject we're talking about. Why don't you?
yeah.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Why don't you give me the limerick that you did today? If you don't have it, I can read it.
Well, there's one, I don't know if you read it or not. I gave the one about Trump and being in court. You read that one, but the second one, and it's funny. I wrote this yesterday on a bike ride. I was riding a bike in the neighborhood, and I was thinking about the war in Israel and between Netanyahu and Hamas and all that. And so I wrote this poem in my head, and I kind of fine tune it when I got home. So it's not really a traditional limerick. It kind of has some internal rhyme. It says, Netanyahu, look above you. Do you see the rocket's red glare? Hear explosions, raw emotions, bombs bursting everywhere. Gaza's son, Gaza daughter, like Israeli children led to slaughter. Netanyahu, look around you, feel their pain, show you care.
That's what I'm talking about, folks. That's what I'm talking about. That says everything. He uses the Star Spangled Banner,
Right. You
our
got that.
anthem, and then he places it onto sort of an injustice that is occurring
Yeah.
based on another injustice that have occurred. I mean, and that's why I like your limericks because they're generally profound. In other words, it's not just words for the sake of words, but they all have a meaning. And lucky for me, generally, when you put your limericks out there, I pick it up right away, and I'm pretty sure a
Yeah, I
lot of
like that. I
people
like that.
pick it up right away. So
Yeah, and they're all not always great. Sometimes they're better, some are better. I thought this one's a little better because it had a little more depth to it. But I just enjoy writing, and sometimes poetry comes out, sometimes prose, sometimes it comes out in a story or a play or something. And we talked about this at Ask Alberto on Saturday, and I tried to stress that when we talked about addiction and how in our country, we've got problems with people taking drugs and, alcohol, and just not participating much in life, being depressed, and I just think, wow, maybe we all need to be addicted to something, but it should be something good. And I have found that by writing and creating art, that that's kind of my thing. It's kind of my addiction. It gets me away from the TV set. It gets me away to, thinking blue thoughts. It's every day can be a wonderful day if you can get up and create something. So that's what I would encourage people to do is, find your passion and do that. Even if you're working a job you don't like, you have to do that sometimes for a living. And some people think, well, if I'm going to be a poet or a writer, I have to make a living at it. You don't have to do that. You can draw, you can write, you can do anything creative. Even in science, there's a lot of creativity. And do that as a hobby. Do that as something that gets you up in the morning, and then you go to work and you can think about it even at work, in between things. I did a lot. I snuck in a lot of writing while I was working, in between, took a break, and I'd jot down a few notes or something, and that would keep me going.
Now, tell me a little bit about yourself, first of all, because you came to our program, Politics Done Right. You kind of just showed up at the program, and you became one of our most active participants that always had something to move the discussion forward. What's your background?
Well, I actually, it's kind of strange because I was studied to be a priest, way back,
Hmm.
50 some years ago. And I dropped out of the seminary, but really got me into writing and thinking about things deeply. I took philosophy and English in college, that was a part of our program to in the seminary. And then I went 1 year beyond to theology, and I said, that's it. I'm not going to do this because it just got boring. And it was all the things about celibacy, and there was all this issues about the church was, demanding so much. It was becoming more conservative even at that time. And I thought, well, I'll see what life has. I got drafted right out of that, and I went 2 years in the army. But I was a conscientious objector, so even then, I decided I was not going to carry a gun or kill anybody in Vietnam. And so I went into the medical corps. I was in the X-ray and got out of that with an honorable discharge. And fortunately, then I was hired by the Veterans Administration, but not in the medical corps. I was just a benefits counselor, and ended up eventually in accounting. So that kind of got me. When I retired, I got into working for a private company as their accountant, and on my own I learned database development. And so I was always a student. Even when I was working for the VA, I was always trying to learn something new. So I was trying to learn, coding and everything else, and I got it. So that became a second career for me. And then I just, within the last 10 years, retired from that. So I started picking up my writing again. But even between all that, I was writing all the time. But within the last 5 years or so, I really kind of got more into it. And when COVID hit, we were so isolated. I actually wrote two plays in the last couple of years. This Castle of Cards, and the Marx Brothers one I wrote, and then another one which I haven't published yet, which is, I think, one of the best ones. It's called Hans Holbein and the Dance of Death, and I'm really looking forward to publishing that one because that has a lot of pictures and art, and it's kind of an art education play, but it's also a play about the life of Hans Holbein, who was a very interesting artist from the 1500s, and that was a lot of fun. So that's kind of I've had kind of a weird background when it comes to getting into this, but politics has always been in kind of the back of my mind. And when I ran across your program, and I can't remember exactly how that happened. I think I was going on YouTube looking for something, and I saw, wow, what this looks interesting. So I started participating in it and really liked about the interaction part of it, the fact that you're not just throwing a comment out there, but you're actually reading them, and you're interacting with them. And then the Ask Alberto was really great because could talk to you directly. So politics has always been kind of in the back of my mind, and even in a lot of my writings, like this one, The Castle of Cards, which is the latest, I added a scene, and I'm working on another one for another edition of it. But where an archbishop and a governor are discussing the current events that are going on about abortion and different moral choices that you have, and it just kind of flows from in between things. So there's a lot of poetry, there's a lot of uh, philosophy, which is my background, and I'm also thinking of literature. I like plays. We go to plays, and that's another thing. I think I like writing plays the best because it doesn't require a lot of description and a lot of internal monologue. You can just show what you're watching.
Right.
And love that the best.
Because it's what's going to be acted out on TV or what's going to be acted out on
Yeah,
stage
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
where it's the, you
yeah.
don't
And
have
I'm
to create the background.
right, and I'm always thinking that I think I'm very visual that way, and so I'm trying to picture when I'm writing. I'm trying to think now how would this look on stage, and how would the characters act, and what are they dressed like, and what is the interaction, and where's the plot going, and how does it end? And it's all it's just, and that's one thing I would encourage anybody to do. If you just do it, just if you have an idea for writing or creating a painting or something, just play around with it and do it, stick with it, and you'll be surprised what you come up with. And even if it's not great, the process is what's wonderful. It makes you feel alive.
Yesterday, when we had, or Saturday when we had our Ask Egberto anything, one of the reasons that I think I told you, man, we need to get people to hear some of what you had to say, and this is what I'm talking about. First of all, addiction. If we could
Right,
sort of migrate our addiction to something that is positive, you've done that with your writing. Also, the idea of whatever it is that you do tied into what's occurring today, it makes a lot of sense. Like you've just mentioned, these plays that you write, you've always found a way to weave in today's reality within your play that just somehow seems to give it context. The limerick that you just read, where you took our Star Spangled Banner and you
right,
tied it into I mean, those are great machinations that others can kind of learn from and start to see that these kinds of things make a difference. And uh, when you urge people on to say, look, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to leave your job to start your passion. You don't
right,
have, you can actually start your passion even while working, which I
right.
think it's an important
And
thing.
it makes your life mean. And you hit a good point, the make a difference thing, because I always think of MAD, make a difference.
Hmm.
But if you don't make a difference, you can go MAD, you can go mad.
Exactly.
Life will just drive you crazy because you'll think, oh, what am I doing? Just every day getting up, going to work, coming home, watching TV or whatever. And it just becomes boring. And I just couldn't stand that. And that's one way I found to make life more meaningful and to try to make a difference. So people have different ways of doing it. I mean, I can understand somebody saying, well, I don't have any talent. Well, everybody's got some talent, and even your talent may be in helping people directly, maybe, just going to a nursing home, or, or going and being involved in a political campaign or something. You can always do something beyond your job and have your passion in that. So I just hope people, more and more people do that, and they don't feel discouraged by what's going on in the world.
Well, with people like you around and, having you always there commenting in our program, having you at the Ask Egberto Anything, being an active participant, I think you bring a lot of positive energy to wherever it is that you go. And I think that is really, really important. It is sort of contagious. And I think if more of us became more contagious with just the way we are, we don't all have to fall for that tale about hating everybody, which is something
Right.
that you bring, liking folk, just coming out there and trying to find the good in every single person, something that I've watched you do in every platform that we've all participated in. So tell us a little bit about before we go here, the name of your books and how can folks get to your book. And of course, I'm going to have the links to your books in the blog for this post as well.
Yes. Well, I've got, like I said, the five of them out there right now. The latest one is called Castle of Cards. And then I've got four others. Let's see if I can get them all up here on the
Oh,
screen
I
so I
have
can.
them up, so I can call them out.
Yeah,
There's the
Castle of
secret.
Cards. The
Yeah,
Secret
this.
Life of Paladin. Now that's I had probably the hardest book to write, but it was the most fun. I don't know if people are familiar with Paladin from the old TV series Have Gun Will Travel. See, I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and that was one of the things that I liked because Paladin was a cowboy,
Uh-huh.
Richard Boone, who was a philosopher, and he was he read literature, but he was also a gunslinger. So I wrote this story about him, but it's kind of a weird story because it talks about both Richard Boone and Paladin. So that the character, there's two elements going on here. The character of Richard Boone, the actual actor, is thinking about his character, and he's writing a story called The Secret Life of Paladin, which this book is about. And so the characters are combined and they go back and forth and they communicate with each other. But it's also about nonviolence and and it's about guns. There's a lot about guns, and I don't want to spoil the ending, but there's a resolution about what the gun is, and it becomes something more than what people think it is. And there's a big discussion about what we do about all this violence. And this is in the context of the story that goes back in the 60s, but it even goes back in the 1800s when the cowboys were around. So that's why I had fun with it. There's a lot of references to philosophy and religion in it, and some people might find it too deep.
Hmm.
That's one of the things that I have to be concerned about. I don't write for the regular person. It's not like a Western, like a Zane Grey
Right.
story. It's there's a lot of philosophy, and so it may not be everybody's cup of tea, but again, something I really wanted to do and enjoyed. It's got a lot of pictures in it too. It's a semi-graphic novel. And then the Surely You Joust, that was one I came out with not too long ago. That's a completely different type of thing. It's all Marx Brothers. I was studying. I joke about. I said that was my summer that I studied Marx. But it wasn't Karl Marx. It was the Marx
The
Brothers,
Marx Brothers.
and
Yeah.
I was reading all their scripts and watching their movies and things, and I came up with this idea. Well, they never had one about knights in the Middle Ages. I thought, well, I'll do one about that. So I just kind of started writing it, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I don't know if everybody will like it or not, but I just had a lot of fun with the jokes and things. And it's certainly not something that would be acceptable today for the most part, because Groucho Marx was a
Hmm.
womanizer, and so was Harpo, and there's a lot of this touching and grabbing and
Right.
double ententes, and I'm sure that wouldn't go over well, but again, it's something I just wanted to do and I did it. So then Hugh the Manatee, that was one of the first ones that I published. It's based on the idea that humanity, and I've seen other people try this too. So it's not a completely original idea, but I was surprised to find that other people had published things called humanity, because they're playing on words, but it's
Hmm.
about
Hmm.
this animal.
Humanity and
Yeah, you're
humanity.
right.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of a adult fable. I guess you could read it to children too, but it's more adult. It's about this humanity. Hugh the Manatee is trying to find himself and trying to figure out how to live. And he goes to all his friends, and some of the friends enjoy eating all the time or playing all the time or fighting all the time. And he's trying to find meaning in his life, and he ends up going to the holy mackerel and finding that he needs to go to the nothing atoll to find himself. And so there's a lot of philosophy in it, and there's a lot of word
Play on words.
play on words. And
Right.
I've had some good comments on it. Some people have really liked it as a kind of a way of thinking about life. So it's another meditation. It's kind of written in a poem form. So it's not it's fairly easy and fairly short. So it's something you might want to look at if you're interested in kind of philosophy. Then The Patient Sailor, and this one I took a long time to write several years, and it's really kind of a fantasy about a captain on a sailboat who is a philosopher, and I'm, as an author, am listening to this person talk about all their adventures, and I'm retelling stories that I've heard from the patient sailor, and then the philosophy of his life based on parts of the sailboat. So the mast is considered a connection to the divine. The waves are considered, going across the ocean in life, and the winds are emotions, and the sails are ways of catching creativity. it's you'd have to read it, and it would probably be best if you knew a little something about sailing, but I try to break it down. There are pictures in the book showing different parts of the sailboat, and the stories a lot of times are independent of the actual sailing. I mean, they're based on sailing, but there's a lot of fantasy. It's more of a fable type book, and there's again a lot of philosophy, and I'm hoping people enjoy it. But it's a deeper book. It's one that you don't just pick up and read in one sitting.
Right.
So those
Well,
are the 5. Yeah.
the 5 books. Well, you know what? I am, first of all, I'm glad that you decided to come on, because I really wanted to talk to you not only about the books that you write, but just the basic humanity that you display in both our chats and our Ask Egberto programs, where we talk real issues. You always
Right.
bring that humanity to the issues. So, you know what? I always ask at the last, at the end of my interview. So I hope you're prepared. I said, what would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
Yeah, it's hard to. Yeah, I was anticipating kind of question, and I was writing. Actually, one of the things I do, and I encourage people to do this. I don't write all the time, but I'm always thinking about writing.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would encourage people that want to start living the creative life, that you don't have to create something. It's the process. And even if you're just thinking, if you're thinking about something, you get a thought, write it down. I've a pad of paper next to my bed at night, a little light with a little light on it. I wake up at 2 in the morning and I think, oh, I got to write that down. Sometimes I spend a half an hour writing. Sometimes I spend just a few minutes. And then I wake up in the morning and I look at that pad and I said, "Did I write something last night?" And I go to I certainly did. And there it is. And I said, "I'm glad I wrote that down." Sometimes it's just funny, Sometimes it's a joke or something. Sometimes it doesn't mean all that much, but it's fun. I was writing one things I wrote, and I'll read this. Here's what I wrote the other night. I said, "We are all on death row, awaiting our execution day. The only choice we have now is how to use our remaining time. Do we count the hours left, distracting ourselves with amusements, or do we become better persons, helping other humans by relieving their suffering, creating art or inventions that enrich and improve life for our fellow mortals? The main challenge for each of us is to live up to our potential by following your bliss, as Joseph Campbell said, and lose your life to save it, as Jesus said." So this kind of, again, one of the things I think about a lot is, my life as I get older, and we don't know how long we're going to live, but I'm trying to do something that will help somebody or make a difference in somebody's life, either now or later. And that's kind of thing. In fact, I wrote this thought down just last night. I said, "My books are my tombstone. My writing is my epitaph." So, I mean, this is my way of approaching it. Now, everybody might think, well, that's kind of morbid, but think about it. Maybe it'll help you.
Tom Czarnik, I think we end it right there. Thank you so kindly
Thank you,
for having been
Gilberto.
on Politics Done Right.
Thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to continue communicating and interacting with you in the months and years to come. Great job.
Thank you.
Bye now.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.